and then a cyclist comes pedaling in front of you. How does this make you feel, especially when you can't switch over to the left lane? I'm sure at this point you're pretty annoyed and maybe even starting to curse profusely, but have you ever been this furious? This morning I'm going to bring awareness of the rising battle between automobiles and bicycles on the roads. I've been investigating this issue for some time now, and I also enjoy riding my bike very much. We all have to commute to work and school somehow, whether it's by car, bus, bike, or even moped. With gas prices rising, more and more people have switched teams from cars to bikes. However, many drivers like you and I may find it difficult to share the road with one another. Today I'm going to explain the bitter issues surrounding motorists, cyclists, and what cyclists are doing about it, and what officials are doing to resolve this conflict. First, I'm going to talk about why vehicles and cyclists simply don't get along and what aggravates motorists so much. One of the top reasons why motorists may experience a brief moment of Tourette's when they encounter a cyclist may be due to their choice of clothing. I'm talking about the bright-colored, skin-tight spandex that looks like a horrible rendition of a superhero costume. This Lycra, that could very well be one of the reasons, but not the main one, is why motorists could hate cyclists. But on a serious note, I believe that the true reason why motorists despise cyclists is due to fear. They feel threatened and are afraid of hitting a cyclist due to the risky and unpredictable choices that they sometimes make on the road. Inexperienced bikers definitely raise frustration for motorists, as some of them take traffic signs as suggestions and not commands like they should. The New York Times reported that a study of cyclists in Manhattan observed more than 2/3 of cyclists running red lights. An article from MSNBC states that newbies in the saddle may simply not know how to safely ride a bike and have no business being on the road. For example, riding a bike without brakes. I'm referring to the hipster version of an Escalade on 22s, also known as a fixed-geared bike. A fixie is basically a bike that has no free wheel, can't coast, and its pedals are always in motion when the bike is moving. Don't get me wrong, I think these bikes are pretty great, but when you combine heavy traffic, amateur riding skills, and a bike without brakes, it can be detrimental, even fatal. These brakeless bikes have been a fast and growing trend. Officials in many states have even begun to implement a law that requires you to have at least one brake when you're riding a bike. No doubt it's a wonderful thing to hear that there are fewer cars on the highway, fewer emissions being pumped into the atmosphere, and more people living a healthier lifestyle by pedaling off the pounds. However, at the same time, that is exactly where the problem lies. More cyclists on the road equal more accidents. According to MSNBC, an average of 3,000 bike incidents and over 24 deaths were reported in Los Angeles per year. The CHP data on bike-car collisions showed that 60% of the time, the cyclist caused the crash, mostly due to driving on the wrong side of the road, refusing to yield to a vehicle's right-of-way, unsafe speed, ignoring signals, crashing into car doors, or simply being under the influence of some type. Now that you have an understanding of the loathing scuffle between cars and bikes, let's jump into the mindset of a bicyclist for a moment. According to the League of American Bicyclists, about 57 million Americans ride their bike, and about 90% of bike riders own a car. So yes, these spandex-wearing and skinny jeans hipsters are actually drivers too. Bicyclists are actually allowed to ride in a road lane when a bike lane is non-existent or is not in operation. A Texan motorist had to learn the hard way when he received 10 years in jail after assaulting Lance Armstrong on the road. Take it from other bikers themselves. President John F. Kennedy quoted, "Nothing compares with the simple pleasure of a bike ride." Mike Wiebe, the editor of Bicycle Retailer and Industry News, pokes fun as an avid cyclist and says, "Without cycling, I'd die consuming the quantities of beer that I do. And what other opportunity do I have for stuffing 250 pounds into two small Lycra bib shorts?" It's a no-brainer that cars dominate bikes on the road, but cyclists are not going to let this discourage them. Circa 17 years ago, a bike riding event known as Critical Mass was founded in San Francisco. It was developed to draw attention of how unfriendly the city was to cyclists, and its main purpose was to travel as a group on bikes through city or town streets. Today it is held in over 300 cities across the world, and critical mass rides obviously vary in frequency and number of participants according to location and weather. For instance, I participated in the Costa Mesa Critical Mass, which was about 60 riders, whereas in Budapest, Hungary, they hosted a ride which consisted of about 80,000 riders, and this is a picture. This is probably either before or after the bike ride, because they're doing their bike lifts. And also other movements that have evolved from critical mass are Critical SAS in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where all riders are female, Critical Mass in Oregon, which encourages children and families to ride, Crank Mob in LA, which highly recommends the wearing of costumes according to the theme that month, and the World Naked Bike Ride. I have a picture of that too. Just kidding, I don't, but that's self-explanatory. For many cyclists, biking is a way of life, whether you are pedal pushing on a beach cruiser, road bike, mountain bike, unicycle, track bike, or fixed gear. Throughout the years, many regions across America, such as San Francisco, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and many more, have created an organization known as the Bicycle Coalition. This encourages more people to ride bikes. CriticalMass.info is a great site to find out about critical mass rides in various cities, and Midnight Riders is a website that lets you know of upcoming riding events in LA and how you can create your own, or how you can organize your own ride. Since you've heard both sides of the story, let's find out if horsepower and leg power will ever come to a compromise. Southern California is not very biker friendly. That's pretty evident because of all the traffic that we have also. But however, we do house some of the world's most biker-friendly cities. According to an article from Aspen.com, the top 5 are as followed. Davis, California, where 17% of its residents commute to work on bike. Boulder, Colorado, where more than 4,000 people participate in Bike to Work Day. Copenhagen, Denmark, where practically every citizen owns a bike and 32% bike to work. Portland, Oregon, which has the fastest leading bicycle network, which went from 60 to 260 miles and connects to all parts of the city. And last but not least, Amsterdam, Netherlands, also known as the bike capital of the world, which has 40% of its traffic movement on bicycle. They even have a 10,000 bike parking garage shown here. This is actually right by one of their train stations. Bike lanes are sparse in California. Just take a look next time you're commuting to work or school. This is in the process of changing, however, according to NBC. There were plans to develop an elevated bike path that would stretch from 9 miles to Pasadena, from Pasadena to downtown, but after 2 miles into construction, it was scrapped and eventually turned into the 110 freeway. Currently, there are plans to connect the LA River to downtown and the valley. Eric Garcetti, president of the Los Angeles City Council, quoted, "We have more bike lanes than ever, and after we expand the LA River, we should be able to ease the tension somewhat. It is definitely a race for space, especially in Southern California. Up north, San Francisco and Berkeley have successfully integrated bike lanes into their roads and publicly promotes the fact that the right lane can be legally shared by both motorists and cyclists. Expansion of bike lanes are progressing slowly but surely, partly because officials now realize that biking isn't just a fad, it's a way of life that's here to stay. Ultimately, it's possible for Silverados and Schwinns to coexist on the road. It's a matter of being more cautious, attentive, and more civil on the road. Both teams are misunderstood, but if safe driving and proper cycling behavior is implemented, we can absolutely share the road safely." So today I've talked about how motorists feel about cyclists and vice versa, and what officials are doing to resolve this conflict. Now that you're more aware of the thoughts and opinions of motorists, cyclists, and officials, hopefully we can be a little more polite to one another as we share the road. And maybe you won't try to run that lycra-wearing cyclist off the road no matter how much his glutes are hanging out.
So Tricia, what did you think?
I thought it was a really good essay. It was really informative. Like, it's an interesting topic, like something I would have never given much thought to, The only thing was you seemed to be reading your whole speech. You didn't look up very much. When you did, it was for half a second. And that was really good.
All right, obviously, well, let me